Most people fear the full moon, but the full moon is honest, predictable, loud. The half moon, that's the one that lies. It was a thin silver blade in the sky. The night everything went wrong. A perfect crescent that didn't illuminate the forest so much as cut into it, carving shadows where there shouldn't have been any. I wasn't hunting. I wasn't chasing legends. I wasn't even supposed to be in those woods. I was just trying to get home. The storm had knocked trees across the back roads, and the GPS kept chirping nonsense at me until I finally shut it off. So I pulled over, irritated, climbed out with my flashlight, and started walking the tree line to see if there was a way around. That's when I heard it. Not a howl, not a growl, not even the heavy breathing of something massive moving between branches. It was a twitch dot, like tendons tightening, like bones adjusting, like something was folding itself. Or unfolding. I froze. The night went quiet to quiet, as if the storm had never happened at all. I swept the flashlight over the trees, expecting the yellow eye shine of a wolf or maybe a bear. Instead, I saw nothing. Not empty space, not darkness, nothing. A patch in the trees where light simply didn't exist, as if it refused to bounce back. A silhouette without an outline, a shape that wasn't a shape, and then it moved. Not forward, not toward me, sideways, across reality, like someone flipping through animation frames too fast for the human. My flashlight flickered, my pulse hammered my neck. I forced myself to whisper, "Is anyone there?" The woods answered, a voice not spoken, but threaded directly through my nerves. Not words, not language, just a feeling. Hunger. My legs locked. My throat tightened. Every instinct I had screamed werewolf. But this thing was wrong. Wrong size, wrong sound, wrong presence. Wolves are animals. Werewolves are engines of rage. Dogmen are territorial. But this thing, it didn't posture. It didn't warn. It didn't need to. It was already in control of the moment, and it knew it. The half moon glinted off something in the branches. A limb, an arm, no, a joint, bending the wrong way. Then another, then another. The silhouette stepped out of the void as if the forest birthed it. No fur, no snout, no features that matched anything alive. Just pieces that seemed borrowed from other creatures, stitched together by bad geometry, held in place by shadows. A half-formed jaw hung open, dripping something clear that hissed on the ground when it hit. Not acid, not drool. Something in dash between my body finally remembered how to move, and forced one trembling step backward. The thing mirrored me, not mocked me, not threatened me, just copied. Almost curious. My light caught its eyes, if you could call them that. Two crescents, like half moons, gleaming without reflecting, watching without blinking, and when it inhaled, the trees bent inward like they were afraid of being chosen next. I tried to run. I made it 3 steps before the forest itself blocked me. Roots surged upward like skeletal hands, branches swung low, leaves shook violently. Not wind, not movement, warning, the half moon. Beast didn't chase me. It just tilted its head slowly, a motion that felt almost human, almost pitying. And then it spoke, not with a voice, not with words, but with a sensation that rooted itself behind my ribs. You were not meant to see me. The forest trembled, the crescent moon pulsed, and the beast stepped forward. Asterisk, I should have run. Every instinct, every buried ancestral warning in my blood told me to run. But the forest didn't allow me to. Branches folded inward like a cage closing. Roots curled above the soil, forming a jagged rib cage around my feet. The half-moon beast didn't need to block my path. The world did that for it. Its crescent eyes glowed brighter. reflecting nothing, hungry for everything. I lifted my flashlight without meaning to, as if my body thought a plastic cylinder with weak leads could hold back a nightmare. The beam hit its skin, except it didn't. The light slid off its body like oil, refusing to cling or define a shape. It didn't absorb the light. It ignored it. That's when I realized the impossible. The beast wasn't standing in front of the trees. It was standing instead of them. Every inch it occupied was stolen from the environment, overwritten by something the forest had no defense against. I managed to choke out a single breathless question. What are you? The answer wasn't a sound. It was a sensation, sharp as a blade pressed against my mind, not yours to name. My chest tightened until my ribs felt like they'd crack. Sweat chilled into needles along my spine. The beast took one step forward, a step that didn't disturb the snow beneath it. No crunch, no imprint, no sound. Almost like gravity was optional. Almost like it didn't fully exist on our side of reality. What do you want? I whispered. A new feeling invaded my skull. Not hunger this time, curiosity. But curiosity like a scientist examining a bug pinned under a microscope. The beast's jaw shifted, hinge cracking, flesh bending, the maw widening into something too vast for its head. Clear fluid dripped in thin strands. Where it touched the snow, the flakes curled inward and dissolved. It wasn't spit. It wasn't venom. It was correction. Like the world was trying to erase the places it walked. The beast leaned close, close enough that I smelled nothing, no fur, no musk, no breaths, just raw cold. The kind of cold that lives in pits beneath the earth. My voice cracked as I whispered, "Why me?" This time the answer slid into my chest, vibrating through bone. Because you looked. I hadn't looked for it. I hadn't asked for it. I hadn't chased a legend. But I did look. I saw it before. It fully wanted to be seen. And that meant something. Branches overhead twisted violently, scattering snow and bark. A pressure built in the air like lightning winding up before a strike. The beast tilted its head. Its crescent eyes blinked out for a second, then reopened somewhere else. Not to the left, not to the right. Above me, my breath. Stutter. It didn't jump. It didn't climb. It simply chose a new position in space, as if the distance didn't matter. I stumbled backward, slipping on ice, and the beast followed, not walking, not lunging, mirroring my movement exactly, with a half-second delay, a distorted reflection, a puppet shadow, a monstrous echo. When I raised my hand to shield my face, it did too, but its arm bent wrong, with too many joints, too much length, and its hand wasn't a hand anymore. Claws slid out like growing branches. Sharp, pale, curved, not bone, not metal, something else entirely. The forest moaned, not the wind, not the trees, not the forest itself. The beast's presence wasn't natural. It was invasive, parasitic, like reality was trying to reject it, but didn't know how. It reached toward me slow, deliberate, exploratory, not to kill, not to harm, to mark. I threw myself backward, rolling in the snow. The roots behind me snapped open like a sprung trap, letting me stumble to my feet. The beast paused. Its head twitched once, twice, like it didn't understand why I'd been released up. Then the feeling hit me. Opportunity, something dash. Someone dash, maybe the forest itself, wanted me to get away. The trees pulled slightly apart. A narrow path opening. The message was unmistakable. Run. For a moment I hesitated, and the beast reacted instantly. Its body folded inward, its limbs compressed, its silhouette sharpened into a blade-like curve. It was preparing to strike or vanish again. Either way, if I stood there another second, I was going to learn what happened to the rest of the people who looked. I bolted into the trees. The beast didn't roar. It didn't howl. It made a sound like snapping wires. Reality breaking, and then it followed. Not with footsteps, not with breathing, not with form, but as a feeling crawling up my spine, as a shift in the world behind me, as a wrongness sliding closer with each heartbeat. For the first time, I realized the truth. This creature wasn't part of the forest. It wasn't part of any moon myth. It wasn't from anywhere that made sense. It didn't hunt like a predator. It hunted like a question. And I had answered it simply by being alive. Asterisk. I tore through the forest, lungs seizing, knees punching through drifts of snow so cold it burned. Branches clawed my arms. Roots threatened to trip me at every step. But the forest wasn't trying to stop me. No, it was trying to shake the creature off. Trees bent away from my path. Branches snapped open just long enough for me to slip through. Roots curled down, flattening like carpet. Even the wind shifted behind me, pushing the cold back as if to buy me seconds. Seconds I desperately needed, because the half-moon beast didn't run at me. It ran beside me, except I couldn't see it. I could only feel it, a distortion in the corner of my vision, a glitch in the moonlight, a flicker at the edges of the world. Every time I looked right, nothing. Every time I looked left, nothing. But I felt it pacing me, matching every breath, every stumble, every heartbeat like a shadow I didn't cast. The sensation grew stronger, closer, sharper like claws scraping the inside of my skull. I pushed harder. The forest complied, ripping itself open ahead of me. But the beast wasn't chasing the path. The forest made it. Wasn't using paths at all. It wasn't even touching the ground. It moved like an idea, not an animal. My breath puffed in ragged bursts. Snow swallowed the sound of my steps, but the beast's movement was silent. Because there was no movement, it was appearing, shifting, frame-skipping across existence. One moment, I sensed it behind me. The next, it was ahead, and then it was directly beside me. I never saw it, but I felt its presence sync with mine, like our bodies were occupying the same cinematic frame. My heart hammered against my ribs, my throat went dry. The forest moaned again long, low, like something vast in the earth was groaning under pressure. The beast's crescent eyes flickered into view between the trees, not in front of me, not behind me, but in parallel. We weren't predator and prey. We were mirrors, bound in a way I didn't understand, bound in a way I didn't want. The sensation stabbed deeper, not hunger, not curiosity, something worse. Call on recognition. It recognized me, not who I was, what I was. Something in my biology, my blood, my ancestry, my moon cycle. The forest twisted violently behind us, trees knitting together like muscle tissue pulling shut. The beast flickered ahead amidst form glitching unnaturally, stretching and compressing at impossible speeds. I stumbled, breath tearing from my chest. The beast stopped instantly, not physically, conceptually, like. The world around me lagged for a second. Then its voice unvoiced, internal, electric hit me again. You are not prey. I froze. It stepped into existence 10 feet ahead, a silhouette made from stolen moonlight. A shape that made my depth perception misfire. Like my eyes couldn't decide what angle it existed at. It tilted its fractured head. Then what am I? My voice cracked. The beast's crescent eyes glowed brighter, as if looking deeper into me than my own bones. Half The word wasn't spoken. It was placed inside my mind like a weight. My stomach dropped. Half what? Half human, half moon. The beast unfolded one arm, and its joints clicked into impossible geometry, like a drawing being redrawn while still on paper. It reached toward me, claws stretching, tips glistening with that reality-dissolving fluid. The forest reacted violently. Branches whipped out like whips. Roots surged upward. A wind blast hit the creature head-on. Trees were trying to push it back, to protect me. The beast didn't flinch. It didn't fight the forest. It just shifted again, and suddenly its crescent eyes were inches from mine. My scream died in my throat. The temperature dropped 40 degrees. Frost bloomed across my jacket. Its distorted jaw opened, and instead of breath, a whisper entered my mind. The forest rejects me. The ground shook. A tree collapsed behind us. Lightning cracked across a cloudless sky. I backed away slowly, shaking uncontrollably. Why? I whispered, not to the forest, to the monster, because I needed to know. Because some horrible part of me already suspected the answer. The beast's eyes dimmed, like it was remembering something it didn't want to recall, as if peeling off a piece of an old life. Then, because I used to belong to it, I forgot how to breathe. The beast, the half-moon thing that shouldn't exist, stepped closer as the forest bent backward in terror. It wasn't a creature. It wasn't an invasion. It was an exile, not born of age, not born of myth, born of the forest, and cast out. Before I could react, it reached forward and touched my wrist. It didn't burn. It didn't dissolve skin. It didn't infect. It marked. A cold, crescent-shaped imprint formed under my skin. The beast's mental whisper trembled as it spoke one final line. You are half like me. And then the forest screamed. Every tree, every root, every fiber of the earth. The ground split beneath us. A light surged upward, brilliant, golden, painful, and the half-moon beast recoiled like it had been stabbed. That light wasn't the half-moon, it wasn't the forest. It was coming from me. Asterisk, asterisk. The golden light pouring from my wrist wasn't warm. It was cold, so cold that the hairs on my arms crackled with frost. So cold that the snow at my feet began to steam. The half-moon beast staggered back, like I'd struck it with a hammer made of sunlight. Its crescent eyes glitched, brightening, dimming, brightening again like it couldn't decide whether to see me or flee from me. My breath hitched. What did you do to me? The beast didn't answer with words. It answered with fear, and seeing that thing afraid, that thing made of broken geometry, an outlawed moonlight and discarded creation, that terrified me more than anything else. The forest surged around us. Roots snapped upward, forming a ring. Branches bent inward like fingers squeezing shut. Wind spiraled in a vortex of snow and needles. Not attacking me, attacking it. The beast hissed a sound, like electricity snapping across bare wires. You were supposed to be ordinary. My heart lurched. What does that mean? It flickered, to my left, to my right. Behind me, each glitch growing weaker as the golden mark burned brighter under my skin. Not glowing dot, burning dot lines of light crawled up my arm like veins of molten frost. Tiny crescent patterns pulsed beneath the surface, breathing with my pulse, alive and hungry. The beast's voice hit my mind again, cracked, distorted now. You are not half like me. You are half like what made me. My blood froze. What, Major? The beast twitched violently, glitching in and out of frame, like something was pulling it in two directions. Its limbs jittered, its jaw unhinged, snapped shut, unhinged again. Its answer came through broken, raw, almost painful. an incomplete creation cast out because it was not whole. The forest moaned beep, furious. Snow swirled upward, sucked into a rising column of distorted air. The beast's crescent eyes locked onto the mark on my wrist. You bear the other half. I stumbled back. No, this isn't real. I'm human. The beast flickered closer, its silhouette stretching across the snow like a warped shadow. So was I. The scream that tore from my throat was swallowed by the forest. The roots at my feet trembled, repositioning, like they were waiting to see which one of us the forest would choose. The half-moon beast's body convulsed, fracturing, reforming, fracturing again. Its voice cracked against the inside of my skull. The forest is waking. It recognizes the mark. It wants you back. Back. My voice shook. Back where? The beast flickered, glitching through a dozen positions in a heartbeat, each one more broken than the last, into the cycle. I shook my head violently. I don't belong to the forest. The mark on my wrist pulsed a shock of cold so intense I gasped. My vision blurred. The crescent imprint elongated, shifting shape, forming something sharper, more complete. The beast recoiled. No, this is wrong. You were never supposed to awaken. The forest thundered. A crack split the air like a gunshot. Snow burst upward around us in a circular shockwave. Something ancient, older than Dockman, older than werewolves, older than the beast itself, was stirring beneath the soil. The ground at the center of the munition, the ground at the center of the clearing bulged. Wind spiraled, roots shivered, branches bowed toward the forming shape. I whispered, "What's happening?" The beast's body spasmed, its silhouette thinned. Its voice, when it came, sounded like a dying radio signal. You are the missing half, and the forest is calling the whole. My pulse became a drum. The bulge beneath the snow rose higher, the trees bent inward as if kneeling. The beast backed away, trembling. If it wakes, I will cease to exist. I looked down at my glowing wrist, then at the creature collapsing under the weight of its fear, then at the rising mound of earth, where something old and incomplete and patient was preparing to return. "What do you want from me?" I whispered. The beast shuddered. "Help me." The ground split open, brilliant golden white light spilling forth. I shielded my eyes. The beast screamed. Or join it. The earth ruptured, not cracked, not opened. Ruptured like something underneath had been pounding at the surface for a lifetime. And the mark on my wrist was the final permission it needed to break through. Golden white light shot upward through the split earth, blinding and cold. The trees bent backward, as if pulled by a force older than their roots. Snow swelled around the clearing in a massive centrifuge, a spiraling blizzard that sucked the warmth out of the world. The half-moon beast dropped to its knees, not out of pain, out of reverence, or fear, or both. Its jaw trembled as it forced the words into my mind, a stuttering whisper. "It wakes because of you." The mark on my wrist pulsed violently once, twice, each pulse stronger than my heartbeat, overriding it. Elastic cold shot up my arm, slipped beneath my ribcage, coiled around my spine. I gasped, falling to one knee. The beast crawled backward, limbs glitching and stretching, its crescent eyes flickering. You carry its seed, the piece it lost when it cast me out. My voice cracked. "What is it?" The beast shook its head. Bones cracked inside its silhouette, rearranging. Not a wolf, not a god, not a spirit. It pointed a trembling, tool-long arm at my chest. A hole. The clearing brightened. The light beneath the earth wasn't sunlight, sunlight warms. This empty, dark panic clamped down on my throat. What does it want with me? The beast's response was immediate, terrified, completion. The mound of earth burst, sending snow and soil flying in all directions. A pillar of blinding gold erupted upward. Inside it, I saw a shape, not fully formed, not fully alive. A silhouette made of crescent. A being missing half its body, half its face, half its limbs. Each unfinished part, glowing like a severed moon fragment. The half-whole, the source, the parent, the abandoned creator of the half-moon, beast, and the thing the forest had been suppressing for centuries. It rose from the ground, featureless yet unmistakably aware. The beast let out a broken whine. Its crescent eyes dimmed. It wants what I lost, and what you were born with. The half-whole extended an incomplete arm toward me. My mark responded. Light ignited beneath my skin, racing through veins like liquid frost. The pain was indescribable cold fire, ripping through every nerve. I screamed. The beast lunged forward, not at me, but at the half-dash hole. It collided with the ancient being, but the impact looked wrong. The beast didn't hit it. It hit the space around it, reality warped, bending like heat haze around a flame. The beast was thrown backward, body glitching wildly. It hit the snow and didn't rise. No. I shouted. I ran toward it, grabbing at its fractured limbs, shaking it. Its jaw twitched. Its mind voice was faint, fading, desperate. Don't let it take you. But I don't understand. You don't need to understand. You only need to choose. The half-whole stepped toward me, not walking, but assembling its missing halves as it moved, using the mark on my wrist like a compass. The forest reacted. Trees uprooted themselves. Roots formed barricades. The ground cracked open with fiery veins, trying to divert the being's path. But it didn't care. It didn't obey the forest. It preceded the forest. The beast choked out another broken thought. If it completes itself with you, nothing in this forest survives. My blood ran cold. Then how do I stop it? The beast shuddered violently. Its body began losing shape, the same way it was stopped before. How? Its crescent eyes flickered once, dim, then bright, then dim again. Exile it. The half-whole's incomplete arm reached toward my wrist. The cold was unbearable. My breath crystallized in the air. Exile, I tow. I screamed. The beast rasped. Give it back, its missing half. And let the forest reject it again. I stared at the glowing crescent beneath my skin. No if I give it this, I die. The beast didn't deny it. Better one death than the forest's. The half-whole leaned forward, its presence collapsing snow. Stunting sound. This being wasn't attacking me. It was claiming me, completing itself through me, undoing me from the inside out. I felt my heartbeat sink with its pulse. One beat for it, one beat for me, then dash 2 beats for it, one for me, then dash only its. The beast screamed in my skull. Decide, asterisk, asterisk. The half-hole's glow swallowed the clearing. It didn't shine like moonlight. Moonlight is gentle, reflective, bound to physics. This was origin light, a force that predated rules, predicated existence, and bent reality around its hunger. The mark on my wrist pulsed again, harder, deeper. My vision, tunnele. My knees buckled, my heartbeat stuttered, syncing with the half-hole's rhythm, merging with its pulse until my body felt like an echo of something larger. The beast, broken, glitching, barely holding form, dragged itself upright. Do not let it complete you. Its voice was fractured, like static fed through a scream. The half-hole stepped closer, its incomplete arms stretching toward me, fingers forming from crescents of light, searching for the mark. I could feel the purpose behind it, not malice, not cruelty, not even intent, just correction. I wasn't being hunted, I was being retrieved. Everything inside me rebelled. My lungs burned, my joints locked. My bones felt like they were unthreading. I forced the words out. What happens if it takes the mark? The beast coughed, glowing cracks running through its silhouette. It becomes whole again. And me? The beast hesitated. That told me everything, I shouted. Tell me. You dissolve. The half-hole's hand hovered inches from my wrist. The mark seared, glowing brighter, brighter, brighter like a beacon calling home the thing that made it. I screamed as the mark's light burrowed deeper, slithering into bone marrow. My skin blistered with cold. My spine arched. It felt like gravity inverted inside me, like I was falling upward. The beast staggered forward, trying to shield me, but the half-hole flicked its arm, and the beast was slammed into a tree so hard the bark turned to splinters. The creature hit the ground unmoving. No, no, get up, I shouted. The beast twitched, but didn't rise. The half-hole leaned over me, its face assembling into an almost human shape made of hollow crescents, empty eyes, and dripping moonlight. A thought pulsed into my chest, not words, but a certainty. Return. I felt my mind slipping, memories unwinding like pulled thread. I tried to speak, but my throat froze. I tried to pull away, but the ground held me. The mark on my wrist opened, not physically, but cosmically, a doorway, inviting the being inside. That's when the forest moved. Not violently, not with rage. With purpose. Roots shot upward, forming a wall. Branches twisted overhead, forming a cage of living wood. The forest wasn't trying to protect me. It was trying to reject the half-hole again, just like the beast had said. But the half-hole didn't fight the forest. It didn't need to. It simply kept walking through it, phasing through matter, ignoring physicality, ignoring resistance. The trees around it blackened as though burned by moonless fire. I saw the truth. This thing wasn't part of nature. Nature was part of it, and it wanted. Its missing half-me. My fingers clawed at the snow, desperate for something solid. My wrist lifted toward the half-hole without my permission. The light connecting us tightened. The beast, lying shattered in the snow, raised its head a fraction of an inch. Its mind voice was barely there. Exile. Now? How? I gasped. The beast coughed out a wet, glitching sound. Give it. All of it. My vision blurred. What happens to me? The beast trembled. Its crescent eyes dimmed. You disappear into the space it came from. I stared at my glowing wrist, at the beast dying in the snow, at the half-hole reaching for me, at the clearing collapsing under cosmic pressure. And for one moment, one insane, reckless moment, I considered letting it take me, letting the whole become whole, ending the cycle, ending the hunger, ending the curse. But then a crack echoed inside my skull, not sound, decision. I lifted my marked wrist toward the half-hole, not to surrender, to give back everything, all the energy, all the crescent, all the inherited power I didn't understand. The half-hole lunged and I pushed. Not physically, not magically, not spiritually. INSTTUALLY. The mark split open in a burst of molten cold light. A blast of crescent energy shot forward, not into me, not around me, into the half-hole. The forest howled. The beast screamed. The half-hole staggered back, crescent features flickering violently. It had never expected this. Never expected refusal, never expected exile, never expected a descendant, a half-born fragment, would willingly surrender the last piece it needed. The world folded inward, the half-hole buckled, its crescents shattered into dust. A void opened beneath its silent, black, bottomless. The being that once shaped the forest fell back into the place it had come from, dragged by the piece I had given back, dragged by the rejection of its own lost half, dragged with me. For a moment I felt my body unspooled, my consciousness dissolve, my bones frost over, my skin ripple into nothing. I was vanishing. I was gone. A hand grabbed me. Claws dug into my arm. The beast, barely alive, barely formed, barely holding onto existence, but holding onto me. Its voice was a ragged fragment. Not you. The void snapped shut. The crescents vanished. The light died. The mark on my wrist went dark, and I collapsed onto the snow. Breathing, alive, incomplete, the beast collapsed beside me. Trembling, we lay there in the ruined clearing as the forest slowly bent upright again. Snowflakes drifted down, silent, cautious, confused. I whispered, "Am I still human?" The beast didn't answer. It just looked at me, fearful, respectful, and utterly uncertain, as if what I was now had never existed before. Snow drifted silently onto the ruined clearing, but the silence wasn't peaceful. It was processing. The forest didn't breathe. It didn't recover. It didn't even recognize itself. Trees stood frozen mid-bend, like they'd forgotten how to straighten. Roots stuck half-exposed from the snow, unsure whether to retreat or rise. The wind held its breath. The world wasn't waiting for the half-dush hole. It was waiting for me. The beast lay beside me, chest rising in glitching, uneven jerks. Its edges were flickering, form dissolving, reassembling, dissolving again, like it couldn't decide whether it had permission to exist anymore. I forced myself upright. What happens now? The beast's crescent eyes opened a sliver. It didn't speak with a voice or with the brutal, jagged mind hiss it used earlier. It spoke with something worse, a fragile, frightened whisper. I don't know. If a creature older than the forest didn't know what would happen next, that meant we were well beyond legend. I looked down at my wrist. The mark was gone. Not faded, not healed. Gone, as if it had never been carved into my skin by ancient creation. But something else remained. A faint ache beneath the bone. A coldness deep inside the marrow. A sense that part of me had been peeled away and replaced. I stood, legs unsteady. The moment I took a step, the forest reacted. All at once, every tree leaned imperceptibly in my direction. Branches shifted, snow crackled. Even the mist slithered toward my ankles like it wanted to taste me. The beast dragged itself upright, using one crooked arm. Its voice flickered in my head. Careful. Why? I whispered. It stared at me for a long, heavy moment. Then, the forest is trying to decide if it owns you. My stomach dropped. Does it? The beast's shape glitched, long limbs stretching, then snapping back. Pain flickered across its fractured silhouette. Finally, its answer came. No. Relief hit me so hard, I nearly collapsed. But the beast wasn't finished. It cannot own you, because you are not fully anything. My skin crawled. What does that mean? The beast lifted one trembling hand, the same hand that had pulled me from the collapsing void, then pointed at my chest. Not the heart, the spine. The piece you gave back was not the entire crescent. I felt ice slip down my ribs. I kept part of it. No, the beast's jaw tightened. You became part of it. A chill crawled up my neck. What am I now? The beast didn't answer, not because it refused, but because the truth didn't exist yet. It finally spoke, something unrecorded that should have terrified me. Instead, it felt like falling into a memory one I didn't know I had. The forest moaned again, only this time, it wasn't in fear. It was in acknowledgement, not acceptance, not rejection, recognition. I took another step, and the ground shifted subtly, not toward me. With me, like the soil adjusted its weight to support mine, like the roots listened for my intention. The beasts flinched. Why are they doing that? I whispered. His voice came as a tremor. They feel what left the half-hole and what left it. The beast's crescent eyes fixed on me with something like awe and dread, potential. The forest creaked, groaned, trembled. Then 1,000 eyes opened in the dark, not literal eyes. Attention creatures stirred in the distance. Shapes moved between trees. Soft howls drifted across the void black branches. Not hunting, waiting, I whispered. Are they coming for me? The beast leaned heavily against a shattered tree, stabilizing itself. No, then what? Its voice dropped to a fragile, reverent rasp. They want to see what you turn into. The words echoed through the clearing, through my bones, through a strange cold blooming along my spine. What if I turn into nothing? I asked. The beast's answer was immediate. Impossible. The forest's attention thickened around us like fog. Branches bowed, snow fell in spirals, roots whispered against each other, like gossiping old men trading warnings. I swallowed hard. What am I supposed to do now? The beast stared at me, flickering, glitching, unraveling our creature born of a failed creation, now kneeling before a successor that shouldn't exist. Its voice arrived with the weight of prophecy. Whatever you choose. I stared into the tree line. Dozens of silhouettes stood there, dogman shapes, forest spirits, shadow-born things, every one of them watching me, and no longer sure whether to fear me or follow me. The beast's final whisper sealed my fate. The forest isn't judging you anymore. A pause. It's waiting for orders. And then silence folded over the clearing. Not peaceful, anticipatory, as if the entire forest had agreed on one truth. A new power had entered its territory, not inherited, but created, by accident, by defiance, by a mark surrendered and a void refused. And that power was now standing on 2 human legs, barely aware of what it truly was. Asterisk, 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 3 days passed before anyone found me. A pair of hikers spotted me at dawn, standing at the edge of the forest, barefoot, staring into the trees like I'd forgotten how to blink. My clothes were torn, my skin was unscarred, my pulse was slow for a living human. My temperature was unmeasurable. They said my eyes looked like I'd seen something ancient. They said I kept whispering. It wasn't a werewolf, but the truth was worse. I wasn't whispering out of fear. I was whispering to remind myself, because a part of me, the part the forest didn't reject, the part the void didn't take, kept insisting otherwise, kept insisting I wasn't supposed to say human anymore. The doctors didn't find anything, no bite marks, no hypothermia, no fractures, just a small crescent-shaped bruise on my wrist. A fading memory of the mark I'd given back. They discharged me after 8 hours, but they shouldn't have. When I walked past the hospital garden, every plant turned its leaves toward me. When I stepped outside, a stray dog whimpered and lowered its head. When I looked at the moon, the half-moon, something tightened behind my ribs, like a second heartbeat waking up. The news called it an unexplained event. Trees uprooted overnight, a circular burn pattern in the snow, animals fleeing the state park, a seismic reading with no quake. Locals blamed a storm, hunters blamed PTIDS, online forums blamed dogmen. They're all wrong. Something far older woke that night. Something incomplete, something hungry. Something that knows I escaped it. Or worse, that I changed it. And then the forest sent its first message. I returned to the edge of the woods on the fourth night. I don't remember walking there. I don't remember deciding to go. But my feet knew the way. The beast was waiting. Not close, not visible. Just a flicker in the dark. A distortion, a reminder. It didn't approach me. It didn't flee. It simply watched, testing me, measuring the piece of the half-whole that stayed inside me. The long, broken whisper crawled into my skull. It remembers. My throat tightened. What does it want? The beast flickered, a fracture in the air, a ripple in the shadows. Its crescent eyes dimmed, then brightened, then dimmed again. To finish, my pulse thudded. Finish what? The beast's answer was a hiss of inevitability. You. I backed away from the tree line. The beast did not follow. It didn't need to. It simply whispered one more truth. Soft and terrifying. Half is not enough forever. And then vanished. Not walked, not ran, subtracting itself from the world. Leaving the forest silent. Leaving the night colder. Leaving me standing on the roadside, with a mark that wasn't there, and a power I couldn't name, and a destiny I didn't want. I whispered into the wind. I survived the half-moon beast. The trees rustled. A single crescent-shaped shadow slid across the snow. But it wasn't a werewolf. Something moved far, far inside the forest. Something enormous. Something familiar. Something mine. The beast's final echo drifted back, for now,